I try to be a host today. I invited everybody. So, and with me is Sébastien Morel from San Francisco, from Crystallize.
Hello, everyone.
And he will do a quick talk about Crystallize and JAMstack e-commerce. So I had a slide with like a few explanations, but Sébastien took care of it. So this one is solved.
Yep.
So yeah, what we will do, the introduction part, everybody can just quickly say, who are you? The goal of the meetup in general. Then we will have the presentation by Sébastien. And then you have a chance to do like a Q&A if there are questions. If not, we will go through the next steps. What we are going to do? What's the next plan? And how can we maintain like a recurring event with a much higher show-up rate? So, what is the goal of the meetup? Just to have like a basic understanding and alignment. It is to create the community in the region. And Dominic, you are always welcome. Because even that JAMstack is like, it is for us, let's say more the technical people, something common, but for most companies, it's still like, what is it? Is it JAMstack? Is it headless? What is it in detail? Sébastien will explain it in one of his slides, but basically to create the community and to teach and preach to other companies so they can join us in our mission. So that's basically that. If you have any ideas, feel free to just share them, send me a link or whatever, and we will see how to implement that. So without further ado, Sébastien, the stage is yours. So wait, I have to give you the rights. Just give me a second.
Yep.
That's always something. Okay.
Cool. I'm going to move you all there on the left so I can see you. Check if you're smiling or if you're sad. And then I'm going to share. Can you see?
Yeah.
Yeah, we see.
Perfect. Hello, everybody. Ich bin Sébastien and live in San Francisco, California. That's the only thing that I'm going to say in German, but I tried. So I'm kind of far. I sound like I'm living in Paris, but I do live in California, San Francisco. And I'm here to talk about JAMstack, e-commerce, and Crystallize. So we want that meetup to be kind of casual, right? So you don't hesitate to interrupt me. If you have questions, I can stop. We can discuss, no problem. So yeah, I'm Sébastien. I'm CTO at Crystallize. We're going to discuss a little bit further and later what is Crystallize. I love open source. I'm a dad. That's pretty cool and tiring. And I love to say that I'm a millisecond enter because you'll see that performances, and especially with JAMstack, is something that is kind of really important. So today we're going to discuss about JAMstack. What is it exactly? So we all know the acronym, right? It's JavaScript, API, and markup. What does that mean? This term has been introduced around 2015, 2016, if ChatGPT is correct. I double-checked on Google as well. So by the CEO of Netlify. And they say that it has to be a modern architecture. It has to be fast, scalable, secure, and it is probably shipping HTML, CSS, and JavaScript over a CDN somewhere. So it's kind of really fast. Again, second point, because if it's on the CDN, right, it's spread across the world, and you get the data from an API. So this is basically what is JAMstack, if I say so. So it's all about decoupling your architecture, composition of your architecture, composable architecture, like we are used to say, some people are saying. And it's all about rendering. How do we render when we are doing a JAMstack project, and we'll discuss this a little bit as well. It's, you know, what the approach we're going to take in terms of rendering. Then it's CDN, events, of course, and performance in general. And on a personal note, I was, you know, I've started to work, and I worked in a web agency for 18 years before in France. So I've seen a lot of different projects, started in 2003. And I must say that JAMstack is not, it's not new, right? I mean, static websites, it has been there for a while. We were building static websites in 2010, for sure. I mean, I've done that. Before it was edge side include. If you are really old school, you may remember with Apache server side include, and that was kind of really cool. HTTP cache, well, I mean, I know we are doing HTTP2, but still HTTP cache has been there forever with HTTP1, so it's not new at all. And microservices, which is somehow in the heart of an headless architecture, JAMstack architecture, it has been around for a while also, right? Why are we all talking about JAMstack? Why is it becoming trendy? It's because something changed, right? And what has changed is actually the tooling around it that is at our disposition to actually build in an easy way a JAMstack architecture. So the tooling has changed. And what is this tooling? So the tooling is mainly, and first, I would say DevOps tooling. So now we have platform as a service. Where all the DevOps is simplified. It's easy to deploy, it's predictive, it's based on build, it's safe, and it is streamlined by those companies like Netlify, Vercel, Fly.io, Platform SH, and you have others as well, right? So the DevOps part has been really simplified. The second thing is we have more and more headless services around there. We're going to discuss about Crystallize, of course, later, but you have many different kind of services. Payment system are becoming headless, tax system, CMS, PIM, and so on, right? So because we have headless services, it's much more simpler right now to do a JAMstack architecture, right? Because we can do the best of breed. We can pick the service that we want, put them in the architecture, and play with it. And how do we play with it? Using frameworks, because right now the frameworks are much better than they were before because they are kind of JAMstack ready. If we are looking at Next.js, you can decide, okay, I want server-side rendering or static-side generation or both or incremental build and everything. There were a shift in the framework at some point, I would say maybe 3-4 years ago, maybe a little bit more. I don't know. But yeah, the developer experience to build the JAMstack has changed as well. And that's why JAMstack is trendy. That's probably why us as developer, as technical guy, we are liking it. That's also why our client like it, because it's fast, it's performance, and we can achieve more. That was my introduction about what is JAMstack. I hope you liked it. Do you want to add something, by the way? Maybe someone wants to add something or disagree on something? Or...
I can just agree. So that's...
Well, yeah, I mean, okay. So what about e-commerce project, right? So every project is different, right? So depending on what you're building. E-commerce are a little bit different from other projects, and we're going to see quickly why. First, what are the key components of an e-commerce project? Very similar to what could be an institutional project, like a CMS, like a content-based project. You have catalog, product variation, but then you have a lot of things like stock locations, warehouses, prices, sales, discounts, cart management, order fulfillment management when the order is taken, and search. So all of that to say that in an e-commerce project, everything is dynamic. And because everything is dynamic, you have challenges that you don't have if you are just building a website that is actually displaying content. And because everything is dynamic doesn't mean that they should not perform. They should perform, because e-commerce website, the revenue of an e-commerce website is actually directly connected to the performance of it. I have the source of this. So those are real numbers. If you need the source, I can provide. But yeah, imagine, and Akamai, there is a study on Akamai that says that 100 milliseconds is actually some like 2 or 3% less conversion for 100 milliseconds, which is kind of insane. So performance is really important. When we're talking about performance, this is just for the slide. I'm not going to review all that stuff, but if you are a front-end developer, you know everything on the left. You are supposed to know everything that is on the left. This is the recommendation that we have at Crystallize about all the front-end metrics that you should try to get in order to get 100 out of 100 on Google page speed. And for the server side, same stuff. You must, use the edge, add the cache. The TTFB is really important. So yeah, this is recorded in the video if you want to come back to this slide. But yeah, you need to take care. You need to pay attention to performances. Performances are not something that you check at the end of the project. This is something that you must measure all along your project. So how do we achieve performance? So we discuss about it. It's going to be a lot of different decisions that you're going to have to make when you start to build your architecture. And the first one, the easiest one, I would say, before even picking the different services that you want, which tool, which CMS, which payment system, you are building a JAMstack architecture. What exactly do you want? You have an e-commerce website. And we are in the context of an e-commerce website. And the first thing that you need to select is the rendering. And honestly, you have 3 kinds of choice: server-side rendering, static site generation, and I would put SPA on the side because, SPA, you all know probably that SPA is kind of single-page application, kind of bad for SEO. So it leaves us with SSG and SSR. And if you have 1 million of pages, you probably don't want to go with SSG, right? Because you're going to have to rebuild the entire project all the time. Even though I know on Next.js, you can do incremental, and Gatsby as well, I believe. You can do incremental updates, but still you have a build concept that you may not want to have with a lot of pages like that. So depending on the size of the project, you may want to decide to use static site generation or to use server-side rendering. My personal pick is to use server-side rendering. And I think this is a trend, to be honest. I mean, server-side components with React are kind of trendy those days. And I think the best approach is actually a progressive one, something like Remix Run. Astro.js also is doing that. It's a progressive SSR. So first page load, it's server-side rendering. And thereafter, it's kind of an SPA. So it's like iteration, and then you fetch the data and only the data that you want. Much better than an SPA, because with an SPA, you load all the shell of the application. So I would say progressive SSR is a very good way to achieve performance, but you need caching then, right? Because not everything is static. You cannot rebuild the page all the time. You need some kind of cache. And that's cool because we have HTTP cache, we have TDN, we have the edge. So yeah, you definitely need HTTP cache. My recommendation would be to use long TTL with your HTTP cache. Doing an HTTP cache and saying that my page is going to expire every 5 minutes, it's not really cool. First, because in 5 minutes, a lot of things can happen. And also because then maybe you're going to regenerate a page when nothing changed. So the actual key to me, when you want to build a real professional e-commerce project, is to use HTTP cache with the expiration model and long TTL. So try to achieve a 95 plus cache hit ratio. So more than 95% of the project is actually in the cache while it's fully dynamic. How do you do that? Using event-driven HTTP cache expiration mechanism. Basically, and this is not the goal of the meetup, but basically what you do is you tag the HTTP response. So when you have an event in your system, that's let's say you change the title of product 1, you're going to send a request to your cache mechanism saying, hey, please expire all that you have in your HTTP cache that is tagged product 1. Therefore, you clean the cache of only what you need. Thank you, HTTP. That has been built to do that. So it's purging by a header. It's a very good way to cache everything. Then you have another kind of complexity when you're doing e-commerce, another project. It's user-specific data. How do you manage this? Because you have a specific cart, right? It's yours. You may not even be logged in, right? It could be just a guest checkout. Or you want maybe to say hello, Robert, whatever, on the top right of the website. So how do we do that? Well, there is no magic here. I would say that what can be done, it's an optimistic UI. So you load everything like everybody, like a not logged mode. Everything is logged. The UI is beautiful. Then you do the old school fetch on the side to fetch the specific user data information, and you update the UI after that. And you try to make it in a way that it's not going to flick. It's not going to be weird for the user. But yeah, you bypass the cache, basically. And talking about cache, it's really important to have application cache as well. A very simple example of an e-commerce project, an application cache is, on an e-commerce, you usually have three kind of stock: what you have in the warehouse, what has been booked, and what you have available, right? And the way to know what has been booked could be done in many different ways. The simplest way for a developer to have that in mind is, oh, that's easy. I can take all the orders that are not delivered, and I sum, and I know how many products are booked. If you do that on each request of the cart, that's going to be really, really, really slow. So instead, you can just have a field in your database that you can call on hold, that you update plus and minus every time you have an order. And this is calculated data that you store. Well, this is the definition of application cache. So application cache is also something that is going to help you achieve performance. And the last but not the least is asynchronous first. You don't want to do anything on a request. This is a simple flow. You probably all know that, but I hope. When you place an order, probably you're going to do stuff. Insert the order in database, check the payment, send an email, update the stock, expire the cache, push the order to Salesforce or whatever, right? All that stuff is taking time, and you don't want to do that on request. Thanks to Node.js, you have promises. You can do some async stuff, not really scalable. The best is to use a queue mechanism, a message broker. It's way simpler to scale. So yeah, once again, this is important, asynchronous in at least in an e-commerce project. So that's the main recommendation that I would give today in terms of a technical thing. That is, as you've seen, I didn't mention any framework, didn't mention any tool, didn't mention anything. Those are generic. This is generic approach. And then you probably want, if you do a JAMstack architecture, want to have an headless architecture. I would love to know the difference between headless architecture and JAMstack architecture. By the way, to me, it's kind of synonym. So this is a simplistic example of what is an headless architecture. Usually, you have the head. It could be the website, or it could be the mobile application. And then you have a bunch of services that are headless. So the payment system, the email system, the ERP, the login system, the notification system, and maybe the CMS, and maybe Crystallize. We're getting there. We're going to discuss about Crystallize soon. A little bit more complex. Oh, and I forgot to mention something in the middle, because yes, you have the head, you have the services, you probably need something that you own, probably need something that you control, which is the business logic of your own company, right? We call it the service API. This is the glue between the head and the headless services. This is where you control what's going on. A very simple example to check that, to illustrate this is, for instance, it's really easy to, just from the front end, to get the data from the CMS or the PIM or from Crystallize, right? Just to render the catalog. What if you want to push an order? If you want to push an order, you are not going to do that directly from the front end, right? You want some kind of control. You want to be sure the user is authenticated. You want to be sure of the pricing. So you actually go through your own service API where you can say maybe this user is a preferred customer, he has a discount and all that stuff. This is the purpose of the service API. It's one more headless service that you control. It is your service API. This is where you have your business logic. So this was a simplistic schema. A more complex schema is actually more, I mean, this one is closer to reality because on those services, you probably have part of the service that you can query directly from the front end. But most of the time, and this is also to illustrate the service API, most of the time you're going to have to go through your service API because you want to do server-to-server things. Example, very simple example using a payment system, whether you use Stripe or something else. Usually, when the payment is done, client side, front-end side, Stripe is going to call your server back, right? To say, okay, this payment for this order is okay, right? This is done server to server. So you need to have an endpoint. Where do you save that endpoint? Probably in your service API. So that any question on that? Is that clear?
Not from my side, because we have a system that runs exactly like that.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Perfect then. So the last part, you can use the tool that you want, but to achieve performance, you should use Crystallize, of course. So what is actually Crystallize? So Crystallize, it's a fully functional backend as a service for e-commerce project. So it will help you. We don't really like to put word on it, but it's like a PIM plus a CMS plus an order management system that includes also a delivery network. I'm going to show you because we can, and we handle the image conversion and the videos and the transcoding and everything for you. So it's an headless service for e-commerce. You mentioned Sanity and others. This is actually because usually you have Sanity, but maybe you have something else, or we have other clients also sometimes using a headless CMS and an headless PIM, and they have problem mixing everything together. What we've done is something that is an headless commerce for product storytelling, which means that it's a PIM plus a CMS and every other feature that you need for e-commerce. So we make it fast. Everything is rendered through an API, which is a GraphQL API, and we make it sexy. So the marketing people are supposed to like what they are doing in the admin interface when they are using the admin interface. So it's really focused on product storytelling, and this is really made to be close to your customer or to your business if you are the end client, right? So what we mean by that is in Crystallize, there is no pre-definition of what you want to render. If you are selling pizzas today on your website, you can use another system where you're going to have product and everything is kind of fixed. But maybe your business, in your business, you want to go further. You want to talk about the ingredient, about the recipes, about the chef or whatever. So in Crystallize, you actually model, and this is a really important concept, you can model pretty much anything to be close and to be semantic to your business. If you're selling cars or if you're selling pizzas, it's not going to be the same model, right? You want to structure the data in a way that is really close to your model. So this is what we're doing. And then we deliver an API that is close to that model, of course. And talking about API, this is a very simple example, but yeah, this is really fast. You need, by the way, you need a fast API in your JAMstack architecture, right? Because you don't want the service that you pick to be the single point of failure in terms of performances. So this is also really important to pick a tool that is really fast. So I was mentioning that you can query. So this is a simple query to get this product. And I was mentioning, for instance, the image. So let's say I don't want the summary anymore. Let's say I don't want the price of the stock. And here, when I do that, for instance, I have the main image, which is original image, which is not probably not what you want to display. So here it's an example of, for instance, to show you how easy to get variation of image. So now when I do that, I have, you know, the different version of that image converted to WebP, JPEG, AVIF, and everything based on the configuration, of course. Then you can use that to render the image in the front end. And I'm going to talk about that later, but we have, of course, a set of open source library that is simplifying this for you. So basically, to render an image with Crystallize, you just, you know, do image and you use the component. So let's have a look, if you want, to the admin interface. So when you create an account on Crystallize, you can get access to this interface where you can create a tenant. A tenant, it's kind of your database for your specific project. And you have many things on the left. We're going to go through most of them in a quick way. You can, again, interrupt me if you have any question. But the first and the simplest things we can start with to give you a little bit of context is actually to go and check the content model. So we're going to use this project as an example. This is a project based on Remix Run, completely open source. So I'm going to send you the link at the end. I'm going to show you the link at the end. And this is fully open source based on Remix Run, available on GitHub. That is running this boilerplate where you can do everything that you can do in an e-commerce project, right? So you have an home page, you can build that home page. You go on the product page, you add to cart, you go to the cart. You have the cart page, you can apply voucher, you can click on checkout, then you get the checkout page where you can guest, and then you can pay. And here we are showcasing a lot of different payment methods. Everything that you just seen here, it's actually open source. So you can go there, and I'm going to demo that at the end actually. And then the order is placed, blah, blah, blah. That's going to work. This is open source, it should work. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, that is what we provide in open source. So for this project, we have, you know, categories. What is a category? Well, it's a title, a description. You may know that, right? This is a content model that you can create with plenty of other services, probably. Not as cool as this one, maybe, you tell me. But here you can have, you know, different kind of component, single line, numeric, rich text, paragraph, image, all that stuff. The cool part of Crystallize, I would say, is those two ones, the structural component. Again, we really want to be semantic. So with Crystallize, if I create a shape, let's do a document test meetup. I can decide, okay, to have a title, nice. But I can have repeatable field, like, I don't know, let's say location. Let's say location with an S, whatever. I can decide to have many different things. So I can give a location here, or I can say I want also a single line in this location, but that would be address. I don't know, name of the address, whatever. Let's do that, right? So I create this shape as I want. This is my own project, right? And then I can go there and start to create that shape. So let's find it. So this was just to illustrate really quickly, you know, what is content model. So here you can create as much as you want. Oh, did I click on repeatable? I didn't. Yeah, so you have to enable the repeatable field, of course. Update, go back, test, and then I can, of course, add as many addresses as I want. So yeah, in terms of model, you can pretty much model everything that you want the same way you would model that with your database. And then it's available through an API. So that I'm going to show now. So that's what just an example. I'm going to just go back to this shape and remove that. So if someone else is doing a demo, I'm not going to see. And then let's have a look as, so that was a shape. Again, you can model stuff. You have item relation, SKU relation, and everything. And then you actually start to create the model, the content, the tree, as we mentioned. So I'm going to take an example of this product. So this is a product. So the first UI that you see here, it's the product storytelling. So this is where you're going to hell about your product, you know, images, description, specification, relation between product. If you want to feature some product or more like this kind of feature, the metadata for the SEO. This is product storytelling. And this is fancy, right? I mean, we're trying to make it, again, kind of sexy. Because it's a product, you have variant. And when I'm going to click on the variant, I'm going to enter into a new world. This, I can say, could be the CMS world. Now I'm going to enter in the PIM world somehow, where you can build the variant, put the different attributes, manage the stock, define the prices, and you also have on some variants, you can also have a story, right? You can have a different description on each variant. Maybe the red t-shirt has another story than the black t-shirt or the white t-shirt, right? So this is how you create a variant. And this is cool for marketing people, right? It's not very efficient all the time to go on each variant, you know, do stuff, come back. So we have another view here that we call the nerdy view. The nerdy view is going to be to let you work in the PIM world in a much more efficient way, where you can actually do bulk editing. Here you can change the price of everything. You can adjust. You can do so many things. You can also copy paste this, put it in Google spreadsheet, change in, put it back. Boom. This is really fancy. Can I do that? Yeah, I didn't prepare that, but if we have time, I can show you. But you can do that. Yeah, I mean, this is really simple to work with. Well, that's pretty much what I have to say on this nerdy view. But yeah, this is really easy to work with. But if you are not a marketing person or a nerdy marketing person, you probably are a developer. So you may want to use the developer view, where you actually have a way to actually fetch the data, to render those data whenever, wherever you want to render them. So this is just a basic GraphQL query that is actually fetching this specific product. And then you are building the front end that you want. It's headless. You can do whatever you want. We also have another view, which is the preview. And if you have worked on an headless project before, you know that it's not that easy to do a preview mechanism in an headless world, right? Because this front end is actually nothing related to the admin UI, right? This is living somewhere else. And still, when I change the title or the description, I want that to be updated here. While this project is in production on the right? So we have a bunch of mechanisms to be able to do that. It's all in the documentation, of course. But yeah, it's kind of cool to have this preview so the marketing people, they can do stuff and they can visualize before to actually click on the publish button. Of course, it's multilingual by default. You can have different tags. You can have as many prices as you want. You can go back on the settings, but this is where I have defined here in this project that we have a default price and a sell price. So this is why when I go to let's take another one, to this guy, I can decide to have as many price as I want, right? If I add the price, I'm going to have another input here. Nice. So this is kind of CMS plus PIM. Then we have, of course, kind of a tagging system. We call that the topic map. So here you can create as many topics as you want. And it's a taxonomy. It's a taxonomy. Then you can organize the project the way you want, really. You create as many levels as you want. And then all those tags, topics, as we name them, they can be assigned to any kind of document in the system. So this is cool. To glue the two worlds, again, if you worked on the JAMstack project, it's kind of hard to join the two worlds. You have a system that is managing data and you have a front end, but sometimes you want the marketing people to be able to build the home page, right? They are not developers. You are not going to ask the marketing team to code. So what if they want to do their own home page? What if they want to change the layout? Usually what you do is you prepare a set of layout that exist, and then they have the opportunity to pick into those layouts. We didn't want to do that. So what we've done is we build a system of grid where you can actually build the grid that you want. So here I'm going to do this kind of grid, for instance, and then I can play. Okay, that's the look that I want on my home page. And then I can just drag and drop product in it. So let's do this one, and so on, right? Then once again, when it's created, I can decide to go to the developer view, and when it's published, you get access to the data, and then it's up to the front end to render the grid. Once again, we have an open source library that is going to help you build the grid, but if you want, you don't have to use it. You can just, get all those data and render the grid the way you want. If I continue on this, getting to the end, but we have an asset organizer. So basically every images that you upload in the system are available to you. So you can do stuff. For instance, you can add topics directly on those. So no, it was promotion or something, I guess. Yeah. So I can add a topic here. You have the alt text, the caption. We have a focal point mechanism. So this is useful for the front end if you want to crop or zoom at a specific location. All those information are obviously available in the API when you query the image. And then you can add metadata on images. So this is kind of the DAM, digital asset management world. Then you can add this to a light box that you can reuse when you create a product. So this is kind of interesting. So that's it for the content for the content part. Then you have all the e-commerce feature. Here you may want to have price list. A price list is it's a concept of changing price on your catalog based on a time frame and based on the market. You may want to say, for instance, that the user from Europe, they have a specific price if they are logged in. If you are doing B2B, it could be if you are part of this company and you are in China, you have this kind of price. So this is a way of picking the product variant, defining the time frame, the market, and adjust the price on top of the catalog. So you don't really have to change the price in the catalog to provide specific price to your user. And then, of course, everything is available through the API. The last but not the least, and to me, this is even more where the JAMstack is kicking in here. It's, yes, we can receive orders. So when the checkout is done, you push the order to Crystallize. Then we display the order, business as usual. Crystallize can get the order and the customer, right? This is just data storage somehow, smart data storage. But what is really cool, it's, in an e-commerce project, once the order has been paid, this is kind of the beginning of the real story of what's going on, because this is kind of the simple things to do. The checkout process is done. Now, what do we do with the order? Someone has to go to the warehouse, pick the product, do something, put it in the box, 1 box, 2 box, how many shipments. Then it has to go out of the warehouse, and then we need some information to display to the user. It's packing, it's shipping, it's, a lot of different things, and it is specific to every project. So what we have in here, it's what we call the order fulfillment pipeline. Basically, it's a state machine where you can put orders. So let's say you're doing a home delivery. You're going to have a state, probably new order, picked, shipping, delivered. And you can move around the order from a stage to another stage. You can also put an order in one pipeline. So let's say this one, I put it there. Awesome. By the way, you see the pipeline in the order page. This is cool. This is manual, right? So this is manual. Maybe that would be nice if you can do that through the API. Well, yes, you can. Everything that I'm doing on this interface is actually powered by the API behind the scene. So if you actually inspect everything that I do, it's a GraphQL query that you can do yourself. Great. But the JAMstack connection here, I would say, beside that everything is headless and rendered through an API, is the webhook and event mechanism. You can listen to any kind of webhook any kind of event, most of the events in Crystallize, and trigger things. So here, let's imagine you want to send an email to your customer when an order has been created. You can create a webhook that says, okay, for every order that has been created, send me something to this URL. What is the payload? What do you send into this webhook? Is actually a GraphQL query to Crystallize. So you see the loop and the convenience here. So here that means that this endpoint that is going to be probably, if I look back on the headless architecture and the schema that I've showed you, this is actually my service API. So every time an order has been created, I'm going to send an email. So this is the responsibility of this webhook. This is where I purge the cache. And I say, okay, when the product, the document, when the content has changed and that has been published, I want to actually expire my Fastly cache. Another example. Or when an order has been placed, I want to push it to Zapier, and Zapier is going to do some other stuff. This is really where the decoupling things is happening. And of course, you can also play with the fulfillment pipeline. So you can say, okay, when an order has changed, have a new state, then you can trigger a webhook. And in this webhook, you can do something and actually move the order to another stage, which is going to trigger another webhook. And you can create your workflow or your state machine the way you want, decoupling completely your application. And this is really important. This is a concept that I like to explain, because here, most of the project, when the order has been paid, usually on the comeback from the payment, let's say Stripe is calling you back an endpoint that says payment is paid. Usually, this is already a callback, so it's behind the scene in terms of performance. It doesn't do much because the user is gone already, right? It's behind the scene. Still, you want to decouple your application. You want a single responsibility for every component. You want microservices, maybe, right? So you don't want in that endpoint to send the email, push the order to Salesforce, or do something else. What you're going to do is you may create different webhooks based on the same event, but going to a specific endpoint. And every endpoint are actually in charge of doing one specific things. And then if you look at the big picture, every endpoint, it could be an AWS serverless Lambda function that is in charge to do one specific thing when it is happening. So this is, to me, the key concept behind this is a headless service without webhooks and listener like that is not really usable, because it means you cannot really extend it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Of course, we have other things. You can actually inject your own application. Most of the question that we get first is, well, what if I want a specific UI that I inject into this? Because, maybe my customer wants a specific UI. You can do that. You can build your own application that you host yourself. Then you can just add this app inside the UI, and the users, they can just go there and play with it. And you control this. Of course, it's secure and it's signed and everything, right? And you can do some crazy stuff. For instance, this is an example of a refund. We don't have a concept of refund by default. What is a refund, right? Again, it's specific depending on the project. Some people will say that it's just an order with a negative amount. Some people, they want a specific entity. We build an example of an app that is actually giving you the ability to refund. So it's a very simple example. All that stuff is open source. What did I miss here? No, I think that's it. In terms of open source, everything is on Crystallize API GitHub. Yeah, maybe if you don't have any question, what I can show you, it's how simple it is now to get started with the project. So if you want to start tomorrow playing Crystallize, I'm going to do that. This is in the documentation now, by the way. And this is probably going to fail because I need a folder. So test live. So this is going to ask you which boilerplate that you want. So I'm going to say I want the remix one. This is the only up-to-date and last one that we have. The next JS is coming. Then I'm not going to create any data because I have already my own tenant. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to give it a name. And then that's it. That's it. What's happening here? This tool is actually git cloning the I want to show you the end of this because it's fancy. Boom, that's done. So this has cloned the GitHub repository of the boilerplate. So this guy code. So you can do it yourself. So much simpler to use the CLI. So now on my computer in the correct folder here, I have a project that is actually doing everything that I showed you in the first place using Crystallize as a backend as a service. So I can run this application to show you. That's it. And now I hope it's going to work. Boom. So this is on my local. This is on my local. And now I have a fully functional remix run project that is, I would say, professional grade kind of things. So if we look in the code a little bit, I don't want to do that too much unless you have questions, but it's a remix project. We are taking care of all the HTTP stuff that we mentioned earlier. So if I look at the product page, for instance, shop product page, not the PDF one. See, here we apply actually the HTTP header, which means that if I look at this page and I reload and I look at the doc here, you're going to see some HTTP tag in order to do the event-driven cache expiration things that I mentioned earlier. So all the stuff that I mentioned in the slide are actually implemented in this project and more. So yeah, here you want to change the home page, you go to the enchant and you go to the home page and you change whatever you want. You are ready. This is your project. When you install, Git is actually removed. So it's really your project. It's open source. It's MIT anyway. And you can start coding and adding routes, probably removing stuff at first. Because, you know, on the showcase, we are showing all the payment method. So if I go there, you're going to have all the payments in, which is probably not what you really want, right? You're going to have one payment system, not all of them. So you're probably going to have to remove some code, of course. And talking about payment, by the way, I didn't mention that, but you should have figured it out. It's headless. So there is no such thing that what kind of payment system Crystallize is managing. We are completely agnostic. You pick the payment system that you want, and you actually push the data that makes sense for the order that you received from the payment system. So see, this one is Crystal Coin, but it could have been PayPal, it could have been anything, because you are in charge of pushing the data into Crystallize. On that way, it's completely agnostic, and that's why we have so many. Because yeah, and those two ones are just fake, so we can demo stuff. I stopped talking. I think I'm done. I don't know how I did in terms of timing. I think we're pretty good.
Sébastien, you did great. You did great.
So let me know if you have questions.
Yeah. Do we have any questions? If not, I have a few. Many?
Awesome.
Yeah, just I'm pretty new to the whole e-commerce space. So first of all, this was really amazing. The product looks crazy. Honestly, I didn't really know when you were going to stop saying, well, we also have this and this and that. that's
I didn't
really cool.
mention everything. Well, I didn't talk about permission search, but
yeah, so that's crazy. So like I have I've worked with some like kind of Shopify projects that we use like Shopify Plus as the API. You know, of course, what you have here can do a lot more control, a lot more customization. But what would you say is like in terms of let's say I get a client that has an e-commerce and it's like a mid to big, you know, mid-size e-commerce. You know, at what point should he switch to something like this or stick with something like Shopify Plus and something kind of more Like, what's kind of the selling point for him to go with something like this? Like, how would I pitch this? Let's say I had to pitch this, right?
Yeah, I mean, so first we can help you. we can help you, but it's not easy, right? It's not easy because it's all about what the customer wants. I mean, Shopify, you're gonna get an experience that is the same for everyone, right? You are not gonna be unique. You're gonna have problematic, and I mean, you're gonna have to stay close to what Shopify is providing. Everything that is about the content model and the fact that you want the model to be semantic and close to the business, it's not really something that you can do with Shopify. On the other side, on Shopify, you may have some simplicity managing the cart, for instance. It's done, or the payment system, it's just kind of plug and play. So it depends on the budget. It depends on exactly what the client wants. That being said, we have also clients using both. So you can definitely connect. You can use Crystallize to build the catalog, push the product to Shopify, and then use Shopify for the front end and the payment, for instance. It's totally possible. We have clients who are using Crystallize to be the master of the data, right? So you have the product and the price, everything is in Crystallize. Then the orders are coming into Crystallize because it's simpler. But then we have a webhook to push that to Salesforce, where it's actually the master for the customer and probably the ERP for the order. So again, it's JAMstack. So how to convince a client? It's also depending on the budget, the pricing. I didn't show the pricing of Crystallize. This is, you know, I'm the tech guy, so pricing is something I forgot. I forget. It's not expensive at all. So look at this. Also, how fancy that it is. Big up to Diedrich who did that, if he's going to watch this or not. But yeah, so basically you pay as you go based on the consumption. So, you know, you can start for free. It's unlimited. You have access to all the features. Then if you want a little bit more, number of orders, more bandwidth, so you have the atom plan. And then if you want something a little bit more professional and access to the developer experience team, the engineer at Crystallize, it's a custom-based subscription. There is no commitment. You are not stuck with us for 3 years. If you don't like it, you just cancel, and next month you don't pay anymore. We are that confident. No, I mean, it's always funny to say that, but we do are confident. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sorry, it's not a perfect answer, right? I would say that if you want a content model that is unique and you want to be unique and you want better performance, you should go with a system like Crystallize. Yeah. That would be my selling point. Showing the client how easier it is, how close to what they know. You know this quote, what is complex in computer science is two things. It's wording and caching. Have you heard that before? No, wording and caching. So to me, wording is also, you know, the semantic parts. On the clients, they have cars, they have pizzas, they have ingredients. They don't have a product in which they create field. This is adding complexity for them, especially marketing people that are not developer. And if you are developer, you know what is domain-driven development, where you're trying to speak the same language between the technical team and the marketing team and the sales team, right? Everyone. This helps a lot because you create the model that you actually want. So yeah, that would be my selling point. And it's less expensive, it's better, it's faster, and the team behind it's much nicer. I don't know. I don't know the Shopify team. Sorry, there might be nice guy as well.
That's good. Thank you very much.
On the theme thing, I can vouch for that. They're awesome.
Now I knew a few of them actually, so they're nice. Yeah.
So, any other questions? If not, then I have a few. So, Sébastien, you mentioned best of breed and best of suite, or you just mentioned best of breed. When maybe it's just like an like an not a specific question to Crystallize, but where do you see the world is moving? Is it more like in the composable world, glue everything together the way you like it, and if you don't like some vendor or some tool, just kick it out and replace it with something different? Or do you see it that it will still shift to a world where you have like the bigger systems, they're more chunky and even more expensive systems where you have to rebuild each part of the system to get a better feature set or experience?
Yeah. To me, the headless architecture are the way to go because of what you said, because you can change something, even if it's your own component, you can just rebuild a component on the side, gradually switch to this new component and decommission the old component after that. So to me, this is what's going on, and that's going to continue to be like that. On the other side, when you're doing an headless architecture, you have to make more decisions, right? And companies, depending on the size of the company, and still today in 2023, we have company, and probably big company, but I don't think this is it could be for small company as well. Some people, they don't really like to take decision, right? And best of breed means you pick you pick different services, so you make a decision for each service, much more complex, much more risky in a way. I mean, in a decision-making way, because if you are using a big monolithic system, like, I don't know, let's say Magento or something different, like maybe Shopify, you pick one tool, then you don't have to decide anymore. You just, use this, and you have to architecture around it, but at least you don't have to take decision anymore. Even taking a decision to switch a component with another, it's a decision, right? Is it good for the business? If something is bad and you want to replace it, probably. But most of companies, they are stuck with this monolithic, and it's too expensive to change this one component, so they don't do it. And one day, I mean, someone is quitting the company, and someone else is coming, and they rebuild everything, and we start the process over and over. So to me, I do think the headless way is the way to go because of that. So yes, it's a little bit more thinking at the very beginning. You're gonna have to test the product that you want to use, to look at the performance, the price, the usage, also the quality of their doing, and are they young, are they not young, the references that they have, and the team behind it, all that stuff. It's a little bit like when you build the project, you have to do a specification, right? That's kind of the same thing, right? You study a little bit before, instead of listening to the brother or the sister of someone else that said that this product was better than another, and you can do everything with it. I don't believe in you can do everything with it. In Crystallize, we don't do payment. We don't do, I don't know, refund and stuff. You build it the way you want. Even the tax stuff, we should recommend to use a headless tax system, if that exists, to manage the taxes, because it's huge, it's complex, and it's different than one product, one service, kind of.
Yeah. Great answer. And what Manny said, like Shopify, you always have like the convenience of everything is built in. It is working. But if you want to customize the checkout experience, you move from like $2.99, I don't know the pricing now, to like $1.5K to just extend like the checkout part, because then you need the plus part. And what I see on some forums, and even in the JAMstack forum, there are more websites, they use like parts of Shopify, like the product, or maybe not even the product display, but they do the storytelling insanity, and then the checkout just goes to Shopify. And then you have like systems. There is like Shopify, Sanity, you have Uniform, because you have like a composable experience layer, and then you have like Next.js and Remix and stuff. So even with the those monolithic systems, you can still build something that is more engaging and more flexible than just like one big blob of software where you have to move around. Yeah, great. So if there is no other question, I do have just one more regarding the rendering. We have like, it is, I would say is like faith. Everybody has a different faith, and we have like the Next.js world, and we have like the Gatsby's that are not really in e-commerce so represented, and then we have Remix Run. When would you pick Next.js, and when would you pick Remix Run?
Big question, right? So first, I'm going to brag a little bit. Let's wait. I hope.
Bragging is always good. It's a part of what we are doing. So
let's see. It should
not
be
that one. There's no value now.
It's live. It's live. Framework decision is not simple. I think first you should discuss with the team, because maybe they prefer, okay, not bad, could be better, but still, you see. So this is with Remix. Could be better, Anyway, what I like with Remix is actually the progressive server-side rendering. The fact that they are also kind of old school, you know, they rely on the platform. It's HTTP based, header based. There is no such concept of incremental build and stuff like that. I have an easy decision when I do static generation. Then it's Next.js, easy peasy. No, I mean, this has been built for that, Next.js. So I would definitely go with Next when it's fully static, even though it's because also the team, they know about Next.js. I mean, you have some static site generator like Hugo, you know, with Golang, you can do crazy stuff with them too, right? So for static site generation, yeah, if it's Node.js, I will probably go with Next.js. When it's not static site generation, you also have to think about the hosting. Most of people, when it's using Next.js, they will host that in Vercel, and then you also need to make a difference. Are we just talking about front end, or are you talking about also /API folder in Next.js, which is not front end anymore, right? This is API, and when you do that behind the scene, Vercel, Netlify, I believe they do the same. It's a Lambda function that is started for you behind the scene, right? So in terms of performance, it has an impact, because, you know, it's not always available like it could be using, for instance, a proper service API that you have somewhere, or Remix where you have a server. So I think the team is the most important. You want the project, you want people in your team to be happy to work on the project. And yeah, so that's important. Astro.js, it's kind of, I didn't try it for a real project, but it's kind of nice. Then you're going to have Dino and Fresh, so many, right? So many. So it's like everything, you need to do a little bit of study. My way to go for now, and this is my personal test, even though it has been acquired by Shopify, Remix Run, it's great because of the fact that you have a server and you can do stuff in an easy way, and it's progressive. So in terms of performance, you can achieve crazy stuff. We are in the process of building, and by the way, if you want to contribute, this is also because it's open source, right? So this is also what is cool about what we're providing. So the Remix boilerplate is actually open source, and we are in the process of doing the same exact project, but using Next as a framework. So we have a bunch of code that is completely shared, you know, the React component, the UI, the fetch to crystallize, the push to crystallize. We have a bunch of code that's completely shared, right? And then we are doing mainly the routing here. It's mainly the routing using Next.js. We are in the process of doing this, and we want to do Gatsby, we want to do Astro, you know, so many to keep up. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
That answers my question in full. Yeah. So thank you again for the presentation. Could you share where people can join like a community? Is there a Discord? Is there a Slack?
Yep. So that is just a very quick example of, I was mentioning we have component to render the grid. We have component to render image. So basically to render image, this is as simple as doing this. And then it's using the different generated version here. So here you have the source set, the picture, and everything that you need to have. We have a Slack. If you go there and you look for Slack, there must be the link. Yep, join your Slack community. That's coming. We put some announcements when we have feature releases. We put that there, and also you can get help directly, of course, on the Slack.
Nice.
Then it's crystallize.com, and in terms of GitHub, it's Crystallize API. So it's this one.
Great. Martin?
Yes, I was holding my questions until the end back. First of all, Sébastien, I appreciate it's really awesome what you presented. It's really great. Thank you very much for that. My questions are kind of related to many questions at the beginning. It's not really that technical, but it is part of it. And they are connected. So the first thing is, when I was doing kind of research on your website, checking all the case studies and so on, I haven't seen, and this is just a question, if this has not yet happened, with all the flexibility and with all the features what you offering, was it always a building an e-commerce project from scratch, or did you ever achieve the kind of transition from, for instance, SAP Hybris into something like this? Did you ever experience from a client experience project transition from an old, very static approach e-commerce system into a new flexible software?
Yes. So I'm not going to name client because it's still recorded, but yeah, we have actually we're actually working with an SAP company. We're doing the transition from actually SAP to Crystallize. So yes, it's happening, and this is the beauty of the headless once again, right? Because you can just switch part of the system. So what has been done is actually moving all the product into. But this one, it's completely done.
The second question.
I have another example of a client. They had an headless architecture already. They had Gatsby Cloud, and they had another DAM, and they had a huge Google spreadsheet file where they were doing the glue of all the system, and they were actually doing some stuff in the spreadsheet. And they find out about Crystallize, and what we're doing is the first step that we've done is we replaced this big Excel file. Everything goes to Crystallize, and the front end is actually a static site generation using Gatsby, fetching all the data and image through Crystallize. They didn't touch anything else. They have actually the cart in Shopify. But so it's Gatsby Cloud, Shopify, and Crystallize. No more Excel file, and the marketing team, they like it. So you can do incremental step for sure. The only thing that is hard to be incremental, and it depends on how you build the project from the beginning, is how do you switch the front end? If you are stuck with the front end, it's kind of, but now you have micro front end. You can also play with ESI. You have some mechanism to also just replace a part of a page in the front end. It's not that simple, but it's
okay.
So yes,
the second question related to the first one is, since I never experienced really a simple project where you can just take everything from scratch and standard as it is, even if it looks like so flexible and creative. But is there any offering from your side as well, kind of professional service where you help and support with all these kind of customizing and individual development stuff from your side? Is that possible?
Yes. We have a professional services team that we call the developer experience team. This is part of this plan. So this is where we discuss a little bit more. What do you need? How many hours do you think you're going to get? Blah, blah, blah. And then we adjust the rate and the number of hours, and then we build a custom subscription. But this is this one where you have access to the engineering team.
Yep.
And
sorry.
to add something to your previous question, we do have also something that is actually going to help understanding how we do the incremental switch. We have a library called import utilities, where we simplify the mass operations in order to get the data from a source and put it in Crystallize. So this one is actually really important to understand, because you dump into some kind of JSON format, and then the system is going to, this library is going to take care of the parallel push to Crystallize, making sure everything is done correctly, throttling to is the API if you go over some limit, etc., etc.
Okay, thank you. The last question is, I realized that you have partnership, a Swiss agency, I think, just yeah. No? And is there any partnership to German or to other European companies?
Yeah, Europeans, yes. So you have the partner page here. If you, do you still, you still.
Yeah, I have it. I have it open.
Yeah. So we have in France. Actually, we have a few of them in France. Where is it? Yeah. So you have, I don't know, in Germany. Forte, yeah. I know it's Norway. Yeah, no, Forte.
Norway, yeah. Okay.
No, but they're in Germany as well. So a few of them. But here, what we do with the program, with the partner program, is it's with some kind of onboarding, and we try to exchange a good set of services, right? The more partner that we have, the better. We don't put partners in competition, of course, right? That would be really bad. So here it's more about helping, making sure that the partners. There is one thing that if you do a product, there is one thing that is really critical for us. It's we want to be sure that the product is used correctly. We don't want to have a bad reputation. And at the very beginning, and now we have more, but we were handpicking the partners because we want to make sure that they are going to build what we love, which is amazing customer experience. And if you have a project that is really slow and that is mentioned that is built on top of Crystallize, well, it's not slow because it's used on top of Crystallize, right? It's slow probably because of something else. And that's why at the and still now, we're trying to make sure that our partners, they know what's going on. So the reputation of the product is maintained.
Makes sense.
So if you become a partner, this is just a matter of talking to us, making sure you have a partner. We have a partnership agreement with the rules, so everybody has the same rules, and then you're good to go.
Thank you so much,
Sébastien. I have to take a look tomorrow where our partnership agreement is, because it seems like it's somewhere stuck.
It's not.
But, definitely on our side. So it's definitely on our side. So we had the talk, like I guess 2 years ago, with Bart and the sales team. So yeah, great, awesome.
There is no. It's free. Huh? It's free. It's just about. It's also about people, right? It's mostly about people, also, right? It's not only, but so the partner agreement is there is no thing to pay.
Yeah. Do we have questions? Any more questions? No. Okay. Thank you again. I will just take what's rightfully mine, and how the hell do I take? Can I take reclaim host? That's something that I want to do. So let's share the screen. So we have this one. Okay, great. The next or the last slide is just what we want to do, or what I would love to do, is to run reoccurring events every 6 to 8 weeks. That's something I think manageable, and have more interesting minds like Sébastien and Crystallize that can give us an insight on what's going on in the world. On-site meetups, that's something that we all are looking forward to have. And then really workshops in person or online, and site reviews where we just casually meet up and just look at what's going on in the JAMstack world. So everybody can chip in and say, okay, I have an idea, I would like to discuss it. And it should be more casual meetup and with beers and wine and snacks, and not always formal. So if you have any questions, shoot. If not, I would say that it was a great experience. I learned something new. Sébastien, thank you for your time, and Bart to give us the chance to hear you, and to everybody, thank you for coming.
Yeah, and see you on Slack or somewhere, and
yeah,
if I can join, if I can
we will
join
see us
one
definitely
day,
in Slack.
So
yeah,
yeah.
see you in Slack. And Michael, you know where you can find me in Reutlingen. So
yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you, Alex.
Bye.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.